you talked about, and I've heard you talk about, you're building a team, not just a group of individuals. So when you're making that transition, right? I mean, now you got a period of weeks. It used to be you have your years to talk to a kid. Now you got a period of weeks. How do you make that assessment of their character, their work ethic, their fit for the team? How do you do that in this short period of time now?
Yeah, biggest thing is a lot of phone calls, and then your conversations and trying to get the best read you can from people that know them, people around them. Sometimes you maybe had a previous relationship, sometimes you don't. So you got to put a lot of information together in a short period of time, and then just kind of trust your gut. With it, after doing this for now 27 years, you start to get a feel for kids and what they're about and what they talk about, what's important to them, and you can get a real sense of what their priorities are and their motivation for wanting to potentially come to your school, and then after that you hope you did enough and you put it together and then you go make it work.
Yeah.
Welcome back to The Player's Perspective, a podcast powered by Hoosiers Connect. As the official NIL collective of IU Athletics, Hoosiers Connect provides exclusive access to IU student athletes, offering fans an inside look at their lives both in and out of competition. Tune in weekly to hear stories and perspectives from the incredible athletes that make Hoosier Nation proud.
Well, Coach, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Bloomington. It's been a whirlwind couple days for you, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been, but it's a good thing. We've been busy. And
you got any sleep?
Not yet. Sleep's overrated. Yeah. We'll sleep later this summer.
How many days has it been? I've been on spring break, so I've been a week, right? No,
a little bit under. Yeah,
under a week.
So it's it's been good. We have getting the staff put together, talking to the current team, trying to put the new team together and make it all mixed right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a place to live and do all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So have you been out in the town at all a little bit? Have you seen a little bit of Bloomington?
Yeah, we've been out and grabbed some lunch, we grabbed some dinner, a few spots. I don't remember all the names.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Great spots, though.
Yeah. So walk me through a day. Like, what is your day like right now? I mean, I'm sure it's crazy, but what are you doing?
Most of it's just sitting in my makeshift office and sitting on the phone.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it's pretty boring. I just sit there and talk on the phone all day.
What are you talking about? That's what everybody will be interested in. What are you talking?
We're talking to recruits, talking to potential staff members, talking to fans and people that support the program. So just a wide variety of people right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got a sense of probably then that IU is passionate about, Indiana's passionate about basketball. Have you had that moment yet where you thought, okay, this is different?
Yeah, it's. You can feel it even as you go around town, and the excitement that people have when they come up and say hello. It kind of just glows, off of people that they love.
Have you been recognized yet? That's good.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, and everybody's been awesome, incredibly supportive with the text messages or out in town, and very welcoming, to myself and my family while they were here for the few days.
Great. So, like I said, we talk about basketball as religion here. And I assume, since you're here, this was a job that was attractive to you and a dream job, I think you've heard you say.
Yeah.
Talk to me about when you finally got the call, got the offer. Who was the first person you talked to about that?
Well, my family obviously was the ones that are in the loop on everything. So, and they were super excited, and it's it's an incredible opportunity. As you mentioned, it's one of those dream jobs as a coach when you get into this profession and you get to be the head coach at Indiana. That's something pretty special.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit get to know you a little bit for people who maybe don't know you. You grew up in a small town in Iowa. Yeah. Right. Pretty small town. How big of a town was it?
Grew up in a town of about 1,000 people, Applington, Iowa. Grew up in the country.
So my wife grew up her family grew up in Charles City, Iowa. Is that close there? Or is that?
Yeah, very close.
Is it?
Probably about 40 minutes or so.
Okay.
Yeah, so very close.
Okay.
Charles City's a little bigger though. That's like a big city.
A big city.
Yeah.
Well, it's
compared
not very
to
big.
No, it's not very big. Grew up in the country, a little small farm. So
how'd you start playing basketball? I mean, how does that come out? Don't they raise football players in Iowa? Isn't that the thing?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of football players. I wasn't very big. I was only like 140 pounds
Okay.
most of my high school career. So, I had an assistant coach, Speed Limburg was his name, and he would have me dribble into town on the gravel road and in and out of town, and that's how I kind of fell in love with basketball.
Did you actually have a place to play on the farm?
Yeah.
Is like the story of like the basket on the side of the farm?
With a cement pad it wasn't on the side of the barn, but we had a cement pad with a hoop and things, and so we spent a lot of hours out there. There was 5 of us siblings, so we had some pretty good, 2-on-2 games.
Are you the youngest of those siblings?
I'm the oldest.
You're the
of
oldest of the
5,
siblings.
Yeah.
So was it all a sporting family? Everybody involved in sports growing up?
Yeah, everybody was involved with sports. I played basketball at Northern Iowa. My brother Jared played football at Iowa. My brother Dusty played football at Iowa. I have a sister, Jody. She played volleyball at Northern Iowa. And then my youngest brother, Jay, played football for a little while at Wartburg College.
Wow. Were your parents? How did that happen? How do you in a small town in Iowa? How do you grow up with all that success in sports?
Yeah, I don't know. You grow up in a small town. You had to play them all.
Yeah.
Every sport. You didn't have a choice. You were out for every season. You just switched to the new sport. So you grow up, loving sports, and we have a very competitive family in that way, and really enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah. Were your parents coaching at all? No?
No, they were. My dad worked for the county, and then did farming as well. And my mom's a beautician out in the country. She had a little kind of parlor off to the side of the house that she worked at and still does to this day.
Yeah, but it's kind of a. I mean, obviously you have a lot of people in your family. Your son, obviously, did he start playing basketball at a young age too?
Yeah, about as young as it can be. It's.
Were you always a coach? Were you always coaching his teams?
Yeah, always a coach. I never coached his teams. So.
Oh, you didn't coach his teams?
No, I didn't coach his teams. I stayed away from that.
Okay.
I volunteered maybe for a little bit of baseball a few years where they needed some help, but outside of that, I let the other coaches tell them what to do.
Yeah. Is that okay? So until at some point you did become his coach. What was that transition like?
Yeah, it was not until he came to Drake with me when I got the head job at Drake University. So, it was one of those things where you never know how that's going to go, just that interaction things. But it's been a tremendous experience for us. We've enjoyed every minute. And the really good part is he's had, incredible teammates around him as well. And that's what's made it so much fun.
But give me a dad moment though, right? There's got to be a dad moment, like where how do you balance that? You're in practice or you're in a game. Does it feel like your son, or does it feel like it's another player?
I think you get a little bit of both. I think for the most part, it's player coach. There's been a few moments. I remember one. It was in the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. We were down by 1. Basically no time left on the clock, and he's shooting free throws. And there was a dad moment there where I was actually nervous for him as his dad to make these free throws. But overall, it's been it's been great just to be able to experience everything together that we're going through.
Yeah. Have you learned anything about coaching from that? It's because it is a different dynamic when your son's on there. Has it taught you anything about how to educate or talk to kids, or has it just been sort of a one-off experience where you think, okay, this is just, I'm going to treat him sort of like everybody else in the team?
I mean, I had the luxury, I guess, of being a part of when Greg McDermott and Doug McDermott were together at Creighton University. And I was assistant coach, so got to see that father-son dynamic, and certainly Doug was one of the best to ever play college basketball. So that was a joy to watch that and be a part of that. That they got to experience as a father-son.
Yeah.
And now I know I'm getting to do some of those same things with my son. It's not really about the games. It's all the other stuff that you get to enjoy with him.
Yeah. It's probably an interesting point for a lot of people out there who are coaching their kids or thinking about it. Like, how do you view the world of youth sports today? I have a son who's going through youth sports right now. Do you think it's become too specialized? Is it all this travel and all that stuff? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it does get to be a lot, and I know even as parents, we've talked about it as our kids were going through it. Of how do you pull it back a little bit? But it's really hard to do because the travel teams are the travel teams, and they play that schedule. So you either play or you don't play, and it puts you in a tough spot as a parent. Certainly, I would love for that to get cut back and let kids play multiple sports and kind of enjoy being a kid a little bit too. And then maybe as you get older and you want to start to specialize because your heart pulls you in a certain direction. But as I mentioned, in a small town, we grew up, we played every sport all the way through.
Every season's changed, and
every
played every
season's
sport.
changed, and I know there's a lot of coaches that love that about players. You get a basketball player that played some football. They're not afraid of getting hit.
Yeah, that's right.
They'll stick their nose in there a little bit. But yeah, I wish there was more of that. As kids grow up.
Have you seen an impact from the kids coming through the system now? The travel sports in the AAU, have they played differently? Do you see an impact of that system on sport?
Not really. I mean, I guess you could probably give examples both ways, but I think kids, specifically on the basketball side, it's become such a year-round deal that they're engaged all the time in their sport. And you see kids can be pretty advanced because they are spending 12 months a year, playing, shooting, dribbling, handling. You got workout, people that they're doing. So
nutritionists, agents,
all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it now that maybe, 15, 20 years ago wasn't the case.
Yeah. You mentioned something about Creighton, but you started as a grad assistant, right? Mm-hmm. Or you started as an assistant?
I started as a graduate manager at the time, at Creighton University.
I find that interesting. I want to hear a little bit about that experience because I know there are a lot of kids who start that way and they want to get into coaching. And you've made that transition. So tell me about that time in your life when you were just starting about and how did that go for you?
Yeah, it was kind of a unique experience. So I had played at Northern Iowa and Creighton University. We were in the same conference. So Dana Altman was the coach at the time, and he agreed to bring me on to be a graduate manager. And I remember the first day I walked into the weight room, and he introduced me to the team and things, and they were like, that was our arch rival. Like, what's he doing?
The enemy is here.
Yeah. But it was a great experience because you get to learn as you're going to grad school and get to be a part of it. And then the timing just worked out right where we had an assistant coach left and took a head coaching job. And that assistant coach at the time wasn't allowed to be out in the road recruiting because it was a restricted earnings coach. And I was able to, get elevated into that position. And then like 2 months later, they changed that position from a non-recruiting position to a recruiting position. So I got really fortunate that the timing of it worked out and then was able to, just take it from there.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a coach?
Originally, I thought I was going to be like an elementary ed teacher and then hopefully a high school coach. That was what I thought my life plan was going to be. And then as I got towards the end of my playing career, it was like, I want to try the college thing. It started to draw me to it. And at the time, that graduate manager position was just starting to be created in schools. And so, I got a little lucky, on landing on a really good spot with a great coach in Dana Altman and just loved that experience and all the way through and ended up spending almost 20 years there.
Yeah, 20 years, long time.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience. So I know you've talked, I think I've heard you talk before about that experience and what you learned from it. I'm kind of curious though, 20 years is a long time. Was there ever a point where you thought, I don't know if this is going to happen, am I going to get a head coaching job? Is this really going to ever happen for me? Or was it just you were content doing that in that position? I'm just curious how that goes. I'm not in the coaching world, so Are you sitting there waiting, thinking, man, am I going to make this transition or not?
Not really. I mean, there were a few opportunities here and there that I was just looking for the one that felt right, and my family and I enjoyed Omaha a lot. There's incredible people there and great friends, so it was kind of one of those. If the right opportunity came along, great. If not, we could have certainly stayed there forever. But so for me, it was like, hey, we were happy, we were enjoying what we were doing, and we were going to stay with that until we felt like there was an opportunity.
And what was it about Drake that you said, okay, I feel like this is the right? Aside from Iowa, I guess that was helpful.
Yeah, Drake I knew the school well. I had family in Des Moines. I had a lot of friends, people you had gone to school with, grew up with, all in that area. So certainly knew that there were some opportunities there where you had a built-in, kind of core of people that you felt like could help you get started as you were taking you over your first coaching job. So that was kind of the attraction there, and felt like there was at that time a lot of similarities between Omaha and Des Moines and Creighton and Drake, and that's kind of where that started from, and was fortunate enough to be able to get that job.
Talk about that Drake position. So the transformation you made there was pretty remarkable, and I want to know about that first year. Right, what was that like, and why What was it exactly you did that led to that success in that first year?
I think we were very fortunate on the front end that we had a great group of guys, and we had to basically put a whole roster together that first year, and the guys we brought in were incredible in terms of setting kind of the standard that we wanted to have, and they came in and they were all about the team, all about winning. And when you have a group like that, and especially when you have a big group like that, they came in really hungry and wanting to win, and were bought in, and they were just incredible to coach. And then when you have that established in that locker room, you didn't have to worry about their expectations because they took care of it for you.
You had to put a roster together quickly in that situation, or did you have kids that you brought? I mean, how did that work? Was there?
Yeah, we had to. I think we signed 9 or 10 that year.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what it was. So there's 2 or 3 guys that stayed from the previous staff, and then the rest of it was all new. And this was before the portal was really the portal.
Yeah. So how did you do that?
It was getting started. There was a few grad transfers, so they were eligible to play right away. There were some junior college kids that were eligible to play right away, and then a few true freshmen. So that's kind of how we built it, and had a nice range of underclassmen to sophomores and juniors, and then guys with 1 year to play.
Yeah. I want to explore a little bit, like you're in that coaching, you're in that transition phase, and you're walking me through a moment where you thought, okay, give me some specifics about, okay, they're actually playing together as a team, and this is working. What I had envisioned is working. What is that moment like, and what are you seeing on the court?
Yeah, I thought as we went into it, your expectations are, hey, we don't know what you have, and especially when you have a big group like that. But I really felt, and I had told my athletic director, Brian Harden, at the time, that by the end of the summer, I was like, I think we have a chance to be pretty good. As the summer's gone on, the pieces all kind of fit together. They played hard. They were about the right things. So I was pretty excited about, what the potential of that team could be. And we got off to a great start that year. And then we lost our point guard, Nick Norton, to an ACL injury. And then it was a little bumpy for 3 or 4 games. And then they really rallied around each other even after a big loss for us at the time, because Nick was on pace to potentially be maybe the player of the year in the league. So after his injury, we had to kind of all fill some holes and fill those gaps. And the guys did a great job after kind of a slow start after his injury to finishing up strong and eventually ending up finishing tied for the conference title.
Yeah. And then as time you want to continue to have success through there, is it different maintaining the success versus trying to build it at that moment?
I think a little bit. Your expectations change, from your fan base and community, which is awesome, and then now you can recruit to that type of success. And like we said, when you started with that, you had enough carryover each year that, the locker room was always a great place for us, because you'd have enough people that could teach the new guys each year, hey, what are the expectations? What do we want this to look like? And it didn't always have to come from us.
That's the culture element that people talk about.
Yeah, that is the cultural element that everybody talks about. And when you have it, it's in place, and it's a good thing. And that's what's fun to watch and see kind of evolve over the course of time.
And then you did it again at your next school, and you had to do the rebuild again, right? Was it the same kind of program? Was it the same thing? Were you rebuilding a different roster, or was it more of an in place?
Yeah, it was very similar. I think we had one returning guy that had played a few minutes the year before, so you had to put together a whole new roster. And again, I think it started.
That was in a different era. That was more in the NIL transfer portal.
Yeah, much different era. So there's a lot more to navigate as we went through that. But again, a great group of guys that came together, about winning and wanting to do something. And a lot of them in their last year, and we're very committed to it. So it ended up working out really well.
You talked about, and I've heard you talk about, you're building a team, not just a group of individuals. So when you're making that transition, right? I mean, now you got a period of weeks. It used to be you have your years to talk to a kid. Now you got a period of weeks. How do you make that assessment of their character, their work ethic, their fit for the team? How do you do that in this short period of time now?
Yeah, biggest thing is a lot of phone calls, and then your conversations and trying to get the best read you can from people that know them, people around them. Sometimes you maybe had a previous relationship, sometimes you don't. So you got to put a lot of information together in a short period of time, and then just kind of trust your gut, with it. After doing this for now 27 years, you start to get a feel for kids and what they're about and what they talk about, what's important to them, and you can get a real sense of what their priorities are and their motivation for wanting to potentially come to your school, and then after that, you hope you did enough and you put it together and then you go make it work.
Yeah, you watch a lot of film on the players. I mean, is that something you do too?
Yeah, you have to, because it all happens so fast. Like you said, it used to be maybe you recruit a kid for 2-3 years, so you had all of
good old times. That was a long time ago.
You could spend as much time as you want, and now in a 2-3 week period, you got to watch as many highlights and film as you can to get into.
So walk me through that. You're watching film. Tell me about somebody that you've recruited maybe before that people overlooked, and you said, okay, that's something I see. But what are you looking for?
I think the biggest thing is you're going to see their skill level. That's going to stand out. You have stats and things that you can look at too, but then how competitive are they? What's that look like out on the floor? What are maybe some of the little things that stand out?
Like what? Give me an example.
Maybe it's a kid diving on the floor for a loose ball, or attempting to take charges, or they make that extra pass, when they should, make that extra opportunity. And those are all things that are all a piece of kind of what they are as a player. And then when you kind of add them all up, you got a pretty good sense of what they would look like, and then how do they fit into what you want to do.
Yeah. Do you have a vision of what the team makeup sort of is going to look like, and then trying to fit those pieces? Or are you recruiting and then thinking, okay, I'm going to adjust the puzzle a little bit?
No, I think in general you try to fit to, hey, what do we like to do, and then make it fit. It doesn't always have to be exactly perfect, but you want to make sure you got enough pieces that all can play well together. And I think that's really important, is when you talk about, as we talk about, not just bringing an individual, bringing in a team and putting a team together, it's how would they work together? Will they complement each other? And you're not going to know for sure until they get here, but I think when you do your homework on the front end, it gives you the best chance to assemble a roster that can function together and then go win together.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the culture issue, but how do you build it, right? How do you get to where you want it to be? You talked about you might take your teams fishing to build the camaraderie, but what is it? How do you work that every day to build that culture of where you want it to be?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's just on the front end, doing a really good job of establishing those relationships and having them, understand why are they coming here, and what's those expectations, and then when they're all laid out in the front end and then they decide to come, you already have a pretty good idea of why everybody's here, and they know that, and then you just got to build it from there. And it doesn't happen overnight. That's something that takes time, and sometimes it can happen very quickly. Sometimes it can take months. But as long as you continue to stay steady and make the process what you want it to be, it seems to work out in a positive way.
Do you have a team that sticks out in your mind that was the most connected that way, or as a team anyways?
Yeah, I don't know if I would rank them.
You don't want to go there.
I don't want to go there. Get
mad text messages.
Trouble. But every group's unique. So even if it's over the course of years, sometimes you lose one guy or two guys, or maybe you lost 7 guys, but every team takes on a new personality. Even with 1 or 2 guys, everybody's in different roles. Even that little bit of a shift can make a huge dynamic in your team and how they function and operate. So that's kind of the fun part of coaching is watching it kind of all evolve, even from June workouts to the start of the season, and hopefully by the end and your last game, your team has continued to become better and better, and that's the fun part of it all. And then after the season's over, you start it over again.
Yeah. So the IU fan base likes to geek out on the details, I would say. You'll find that it's a very well educated, basketball knowledgeable fan base. So geek out for a second on me here. Talk to me about a set, a play, something that you feel like is sort of a signature for you. What are we going to see that's going to be okay, that feels like Coach DeVries. That feels like something he is. What is that in your career has been for you?
Yeah, I think offensively, we really take a lot of pride on kind of making that one extra pass. So whether it's out of a set play, it's kind of that hockey assist, if you will, of when our teams are really rolling offensively, you'll see the ball popping from side to side and ending in, either hopefully a 3-point shot, maybe it's a back door that's been drawn up or something, and playing off of what our team's strengths are. But overall, just that overall unselfishness of a group of guys, and you can see it, and there's no hesitation that they'll make that extra pass to a teammate because they know they'll get it back on the next possession.
Yeah. Is there a part of basketball, though, so that's the part you like to see, right? That's what you want to see from a team. Is there anything in basketball right now that you think, like, this drives me nuts? Like, whether it's the way they're officiating or the rules or the culture or anything? Is there something that's like, if I could change this about basketball, this is what I would change?
I don't know. There's a lot I would change. I know what I like, and that's a team that's really competitive and plays tough and physical. So anytime it's not that, those are the things that, from a coach that we kind of have as absolutes that we can't allow to happen. But, when your group is really locked in and playing tough and physical and diving on the floor and doing all those little things, that's when you know that.
How do you get them there if they're not?
It's constant reinforcement, to what the expectations are. But again, when your team on the front end, when you try to recruit to that, it makes it a lot easier because they're already coming in with a little bit of that mindset, and now you got a collection of guys that are all wired that way to want to play that type of style and play that way. It makes it a lot easier to get them there.
Mm-hmm. I've heard you talk about your practices, and they tend to be shorter and more efficient. Why is that?
I just believe like you want to try to practice how you want them to play. High intensity, very fast paced, not a lot of downtime within our practices and even in drills. Like if we're doing a specific drill for, maybe we're working on covering back doors. We don't need to do it for 10 minutes. We'll do it for 2 minutes, get multiple reps and just always reinforcing it and stuff, but not hanging with it so long that now they're practicing it and they kind of get...
practicing the drill.
Practicing the drill, and they get bored with it a little bit. Yeah. So we want to practice it as game rep as possible, short and quick, do it right, and then let's get on to the next thing.
How do you feel about conditioning, training? What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a huge part of today's game. I mean, the strength training, nutrition, all of those things have become still vital to your team's success, and we put a lot of priority into that. And every individual has different needs. So, making sure that, there might be someone that maybe needs to trim up a little bit. There might be somebody that needs to put on a little more weight. And so your strength coach is such a huge part of making sure that we get each guy and put them in a position where we can maximize what they have for a potential. And they spend so much time with them in the summer and fall that that's a critical piece.
Yeah. You've talked about, there's a lot of components to this, but you talked about they are still student athletes. And how do they balance that in the reality of today's sports? These are almost full-time jobs, being a basketball player at this level. How do they balance the academics and trying to have a college experience at the same time?
Yeah, I think, kids are still kids. I think they do a good job. And it is there's more access now that we have than before. But we try to make it so that they're coming in and we want them to have a great experience of playing with a group of guys that they're all about the same stuff, and they come in, they get worked, and challenge themselves to continue to want to be better and get the most out of every individual, and then collectively as a team, and then they can still go be college kids. They got to do the homework, they got to go to class, all those type of things. So not a lot's changed in that regard. They're still 18 to 23-year-olds. So, but I think that, again, that process of understanding like what they're going through, from a schoolwork standpoint to practice to all the demands that there are to being a college athlete, especially a high profile, college athlete. But I know when you talk to them, they wouldn't trade it for anything, and that's a tremendous opportunity for them. Yeah.
Have you noticed a difference? Do you think there'll be a difference playing the Big Ten in terms of where you were before? Is the style of basketball different? Are you going to play the same way? Or do you make adjustments, I guess I would say?
I think every league kind of has it all they all kind of start to blend to be similar because, and every league is a little different. And then the schools within the league, everybody has a little bit of variance of what they are. So as you're getting into it and you're watching film of individual teams and then collectively as a team, like we'll go through, throughout this late spring, and we'll assign, different teams to coaches and stuff. So we have a really good idea as we go into summer workouts of some of the things that maybe fit this league that are different than other leagues. So we can best prepare and put our workouts kind of catered to that throughout the summer.
Yeah. Does your makeup of a team will need to be different because of the Big Ten, or you think it's still pretty much the same?
I think pretty much the same. It's still, you got to have certain things that, within your team. You got to have some size at positions. You got to have some skills, some athleticism. So I think, again, it just goes back to making sure that we get the pieces so that they can fit together into what we like to do, both offensively and defensively.
So I'm a very talented recruit, and you're talking to me in my wherever I am on the phone or whatever. Tell me not just all the stuff I've already heard, but tell me what my day in life is going to be like playing for you.
Yeah, we lay it out pretty specific of like, hey, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? And then here's what it is. And we're very honest with kids. Like I always tell kids, like, hey, when we're in that recruiting visit, I'm not going to promise you anything that, I can't deliver on. So, we're not going to promise kids starting spots or anything like that, but we're going to promise opportunity for you to come in and go make something happen. And that's, again, that goes back to where that locker room then knows, like, hey, coach didn't tell you something different than me, and vice versa. And now it's like, how do we help you get the most out of kind of your abilities and your talents, and then fit it in with the framework of what we're trying to do as a team. And that can always evolve and change as the season goes. And that's kind of the fun part as you watch kids develop, from their, not only their within the year, but maybe even for their, from their freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year.
Yeah.
Seeing the type of things that they got so much better at that, maybe you didn't even see at the very beginning.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm a parent. So I heard all the things you just told my kid. I'm going to entrust my son to you for the next 4 years. Why should I do that?
Yeah, it's like now it's even a unique set of circumstances. I have my own son in that locker room,
Yes.
and I want him to have a great experience, just like I want your son to have a great experience. And that starts with making sure it's a locker room full of guys that are about the right stuff and are motivated for the same things and the same reasons. And when you have that, it makes for a much more enjoyable locker room, and that's something that's very important to us, and then the experience they're going to have, within our campus and outside of that. And, that's the exciting part as you bring in kids and you get to, as you said, parents now are handing you their son, and, and we want to do and continue to do, what they've already done for the first 18 years or however many years of their life.
And so the other thing I people like to know about practices, but is there a drill that if I came to a practice, whatever, next few months or whatever, and I came back 5 years, is there one drill that we're going to see that's going to be the same, that's kind of says something about how you want to play basketball?
Yeah, I think we have kind of like the dailies that we do. We mentioned the extra passes. They're usually 1 or 2 minutes. We call it a drive and kick drill. It literally is 1 minute to start every single practice about, working on not traveling as you start a drive, playing off of 2 feet, and then making that extra pass. And it's only 1 minute, but I believe it just carries over every day into kind of how do we play and how do we want to play. And those are the things I think our guys probably dread every day because they know this is what we're starting with.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important that consistency of like, this is important to us. And that's just why we do it every day, even if it is for just a very short period of time.
So we're going to see that 5 years from now. We'll see that same drill.
Yeah. People will come back and like, man, I used to hate that. It's only for 60 seconds, so
right.
You can get through it.
Okay, so we'll wrap up here. I know you got a lot of things to do, and really appreciate your time. But IU fans are looking. What do we expect next year? I've heard you talk about toughness and the extra pass and all that, but give us something to look forward to. What are we going to see different this year that would be sort of a hallmark of a team that you're coaching?
Like I've told the team, like it can't be just words that we tell people, hey, this is what we are. Like our goal is for when people watch us, that they leave this building and go, wow, they play hard. Wow, they play unselfish. Wow, they play together. Wow, they play with energy and enthusiasm. And when you get to that point where random people, fans, boosters, whoever it may be, when they come to watch us play, if they walk out of there saying those things, that's when you know your team is doing the things that they need to do to be successful and to win games.
Yeah. Oh, one question I did want to ask you was, recruiting has changed a lot over the last few years. We talked about a lot of reasons. But Indiana has a history of of creating shooters. How do you feel about in-state recruiting? Do you view that differently? I'm just kind of curious how you view that. Some coaches may say, I'm going to go wherever. Some coaches think, well, it's great to have your home state involved. How do you envision that?
I mean, in-state recruiting is critical. Like that, we have to be great in-state, and it's changed a little bit where you can now with the portal and things, you have to still be able to go touch not only within the United States but the entire world. Is open to you now, and when you're in Indiana, you can go about anywhere, to go get kids, but you have to be really good and strong in your state, and that's important to us. And we're excited about being very strong in our recruitment of the state.
And I understand you're an energy drink person.
Yeah, maybe too much. I don't know if we.
I don't know if we should
promote that. That'll get me in trouble.
Is that what keeps you going through the day?
That's what keeps me going through the day.
Yeah.
Usually 1 or 2. But never above 2.
Okay.
Two's
Gotcha.
the max.
So on the sidelines, if you see you drinking something, we'll know what that is.
Yeah, you'll know it's probably a C4.
Okay. All right. Well, Coach, thank you so much. Welcome to Bloomington. It's great to have you. We're excited for next year.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We hope you loved this episode of Players Perspective. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Stay connected with Hoosiers Connect on social media for even more exciting content featuring IU student athletes. Until next time, Hoosier Nation.